The riddarasögur are Norse prose sagas of the romance genre, starting in the 13th century with Norwegian translations of French chansons, geste, and Latin romances and histories. The genre expanded in Iceland to indigenous creations in a similar style. While the riddarasögur were widely read in Iceland for many centuries, they have traditionally been regarded as popular literature inferior in artistic quality to the Icelanders' sagas and other indigenous genres. Receiving little attention from scholars of Old Norse literature, many remain untranslated. The most comprehensive guide to the manuscripts, editions, translations, and secondary literature of this body of sagas is Kalinki and Mitchell's 1985 Bibliography of Old Norse Icelandic Romances. The production of chivalric sagas in Scandinavia was focused on Norway in the 13th century and then Iceland in the 14th. Vernacular Danish and Swedish romances came to prominence rather later and were generally in verse. The most famous of these are the Jøfemjævus, themselves predominantly translations of Norwegian translations of French romances. Terminology. The term riddarasögur occurs in Mega Saga Jarls, where there is a reference to Frasanja.Svosem, Thirteenth Saga, Floven Saga etc. After a riddarasögur, narratives such as the Saga of Thirteenth, the Saga of Flovent, or other knight sagas. Another technical term sometimes encountered is ligisögur, lie sagas, applied to fictional chivalric and legendary sagas. Translations. The first known Old Norse translations of European romances occurred under the patronage of King Håkon Håkonsson of Norway, and seem to have been part of a program of Europeanization. The earliest dated work is a 1226 translation by one brother Robert of Tristan by Thomas of Britain. The Old Norse work, Tristram's Saga OK Icelandar, is especially valuable since the original Old French poem is only preserved in fragments. Ella Saga OK Rosamund, a translation of Eli de St. Giles, is similarly attributed to an abbot Robert, presumably the same man having been promoted within his order. King Håkon also commissioned Motl's Saga, an adaptation of Limantel Mautai Ivan Saga, a reworking of Creation de Troyes' Yvain and Strengleikar, a collection of ballads principally by Marie de France. Works in similar style, which may also have been commissioned by King Håkon, are Parzival's Saga, Valvan's that Tr and Eric's Saga, all derived from the works of Creation de Troyes. Carlomagna's Saga is a compilation of more disparate origin, dealing with Charlemagne and his 12 paladins and drawing on historiographical material as well as chansons de geste. Other works believed to derive from French originals are Beaver's Saga, Flora's Saga, OK Blanqui Fleur, Flovent's Saga, and Partel Saga. Pseudo-historical works translated from Latin are Alexander's Saga, Amicus Saga, OK Emilius Bretisögur, and Trojumana Saga. Also pseudo-historical, Thirteenth Saga af Bern is unusual in having been translated from German. These Old Norse translations have been characterized by Margaret Clunies-Ross. Thus, the Old Norse term riddarasögur covers what were a number of genres in Latin, French and Anglo-Norman, but common to all of them are the courtly setting, their interest in kingship, and their concerns with the ethics of chivalry and courtly love. It seems, however, from a comparison between the French originals and the Old Norse translations of courtly romances, such as Creation de Troyes, Aenide, Yvain, and Perceval, that the translators who supplied King Håkon's court and others in Norway and Iceland who enjoyed such sagas offered an independent rewriting of the sources. It is notable that they did not convey a number of key aspects of creation's somewhat ironic perspective on courtly society. This may well be because most of the translators were probably clerics, but it is also likely to reflect traditional Norse tastes and narrative conventions. In particular, most elements of explicit eroticism have been deleted from the riddarasögur, as have much comedy and irony in the treatment of the protagonist's behavior. Instead, the narratives are largely exemplary and didactic, in large part because the Scandinavian translators refrained from using two essential narrative devices of the sources, namely the internal monologue, which conveyed the private thoughts and feelings of the characters, and the intrusive involvement of the narrator, which was a vehicle for conveying a nuanced and often ironic point of view. Original compositions. Inspired by translated continental romances, Icelanders began enthusiastically composing their own romance sagas, apparently around the later 13th century, with the genre flourishing from the 14th century. The rise of the genre has been associated with Iceland coming under Norwegian rule in the 1260s, and the consequent need for Icelandic ecclesiastical and secular elites to explore Icelanders' new identities as vassals to a king. These new political formations particularly affected the marriage market for elite Icelanders, making gender politics a central theme of many romances. One seminal composition, directly or indirectly influential on many subsequent sagas, seems to have been Clary Saga, whose prologue states that it was translated from a Latin metrical work which John Haldorson, Bishop of Scalauld, found in France, but which is now thought to have been composed by John from scratch. John's work seems to have been one of the inspirations for the 14th century North Icelandic Benedictine school which, while most clearly associated with religious writing, also seems to have involved romance writing. The material received a fairly substantial survey in Margaret Schlock's 1934 Romance in Iceland, since when the main monograph studies of the genre have been Astrid van Nul's original riddarasögur al style Altnordische Sagaliteratur, Jörg Glaus's Islandish Marchangsagas, Marianne Kallink's Bridal Quest Romance in Medieval Iceland, and Geraldine Barnes's The Bookish Riddarasögur. Post-medieval reception. Chivalric sagas remained in widespread manuscript circulation in Iceland into the 20th century. They were often reworked as Rimor, and new chivalric sagas in the same mold as medieval ones continued to be composed into the 19th century. Particularly during the 18th century, some chivalric sagas were taken to be useful historical sources for the history of Sweden and Denmark, underpinning their imperial aspirations, and were printed in these countries. One prominent example is Erik Julius Björn's Nordiska Kamper data of 1737. List of chivalric sagas from the Middle Ages. Kallinck and Mitchell's Bibliography of Old Norse Icelandic Romances lists the following translated riddarasögur: Alexander's Saga, Amicus Saga, OK Emilius, Beva Saga, Brettasögur, Ella Saga, OK Rosamund, Erik Saga, Flora's Saga, OK Blanki Flor, Flovens Saga, Ivan Saga, Karl Magnus Saga, Mottel's Saga, Pamphilus OK Galathea, Parsifal's Saga and Valvens that tr. Partla Oppasaga, Strengleikar Foretha Prologue, Bisclarets Jothchet Uval Desire Downs Joth Eskia Equiten Gaitar Lauf Grelent Guiamas Joth Guruns Joth Januals Joth Jonet Lostiklikara Joth, Milan Nab or Icerigar Hingamli Stranda Joth Tidoral T Vegia Elskanda Joth T Vegia Elskanda Strengleikar. Teodulf's Saga, Tristram Saga, OK Icelandar Thomas of Britain's Tristan, Trojumana Saga. The following is a probably complete list of original medieval Icelandic chivalric sagas. Adornia saga, Aleflex saga, Blomstravala saga, Berings saga, Damaster saga, Dinas saga, Drambalata, Dramajon saga, Hector's saga, Flora's saga, Konungsok Sona Hans, Gibbon saga, Gregor saga, Owings saga OK Trigva, Jarlman saga OK Hermans, John saga Likara, Giri Alex saga, Clary saga, Conrad saga Pisarosonar, Magus saga Giles, Melkolf saga OK Solomon's Konungs, Meerman's saga, 90th saga, Nicola's saga Likara, Raymondar saga Pisarosonar, Samson saga Fagra, Saula saga OK Nicanas, Sigurd saga Frona, Sigurd saga OK Valbrands, Sigurd saga Fots, Sigurd saga Turnara, Sigurd saga Thogla, Tristram saga OK Isoldar, the Valdemar saga, Victor's saga OK Blavis, Viljarm saga Sjoths, Vilmundar saga Vith Utan, Tjala John saga,